are honored to have one of the brightest populist minds in the conservative movement, a former member of our armed forces, an author of numerous books, a brilliant mind in the legal field, a senior columnist for Town Hall, and an analyst across the host of both television programs and online platforms, Kurt Schlichter. Kurt, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for being here. There's nothing I love more than a nice intro talking about me.
Well, let's dive right in without further ado. I think one of the first things we want to talk about with you is definitely the stock market fiasco with GameStop, with AMC, with even not unrelated to the stock market, but Dogecoin. What do you make of the actions the government has taken regarding these stocks, Robinhood, and so forth?
If you wanted to further destroy faith in the institutions in the system, you would convene a council of renowned halfwits who would think of the most destructive possible course of action, and they would be hard pressed to come up with as an outstanding one as our awesome establishment has managed to do. It's actually quite remarkable.
And if I may, in terms of like the GameStop, at this point, what has it accomplished? Has it accomplished like perception, or did it accomplish anything like bankrupting any hedge funds? Like, where did we go from there?
Well, look, I don't know what it does substantively. I do know what it does in the sense that it illuminates the situation. You know, you have a situation where finally the little guy wins something. That's kind of unusual, and that's actually the main critique on the right and the left of our society, which is there are two sets of rules, and the little guy can never win. So it's kind of amazing to me that the establishment walks right into this completely blind, not understanding the problem that it faces, which is an absolute lack of faith by normal people. One of the problems is, guys, I don't think our establishment even thinks about normal people. I think it thinks about other people who went to Harvard with them. And it's constantly coming up against, these, uppity proletarians demanding their rights. And that's what happened with GameStop. And they didn't hesitate, not even for a second, to change the rules. Now, they've been doing that pretty regularly. You see that with, everything. I mean, look at the right of free speech. Did you know now there's not a, quote, right to lie or a right to incite? I didn't know about that. I'm only a freaking First Amendment lawyer. Every rule has changed to the advantage of the establishment, meaning there are no rules, meaning people are getting woke to the fact that they're suckers if they play along. The United States runs by consent. People agree, yeah, this is kind of fair, and if I lose, I lose, but I lost fair and square. Yeah, I get that. I can deal with that. These guys are putting that in jeopardy, and then what comes after? Well, what comes after looks a lot like other countries, where other countries, in other countries, they spend an inordinate amount of time and effort getting around the rules the government establishes.
Absolutely.
In America, they don't. Our taxes are essentially voluntary. You figure out how much you owe, you pay it. They audit some of them. But most of us are like, okay, well, that's what I owe. Here's my check. There's some cheaters, but most people comply. It's the 3 a.m. stop sign rule. If you're out driving at 3 a.m., which I am sometimes, you'll see people stop at stop signs. Now, why do they do that? There's almost certainly not a car coming. We stop at stop signs because that's a rule we all agreed on. And when you lose that, and doing things like changing the rules in mid-game, playing Calvin ball with the stock market and everything else, that is a great, great way to end a government based on consent. But of course, now we're seeing them attempting to have a government based on coercion. You know,
Absolutely. And to piggyback off that, you have a candidate like Donald Trump, right? Somebody that the left fought tooth and nail, and even many on the establishment right fought tooth and nail to get rid of, because they claim that his ideas of spewing about corruption, about collusion, about the disingenuous nature of the supposed righteousness of the institutions, that it was dangerous rhetoric to our nation. And yet what you end up seeing is the vindication of Trump's ideas, right? You see that it permeates, in terms of the corruption, permeates beyond the political realm into the stock market, into just stock buying, literally every aspect of society, whether it be economic and fiscal, whether it be political. There is some level of establishment and institutional corruption in.
yes.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely correct. If you look at the problem, that problem they have with Trump is that Trump was correct.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, there are a lot of questions about the election, for instance. There are a lot of questions about the competence and, frankly, the good faith of our intelligence community and our law enforcement community. His crime was raising questions about the establishment. That's literally what they say in the, if you look beneath the surface in this impeachment thing. Well, he said the election wasn't fair. Well, are we not allowed to have differing opinions about that now? Now that's, quote, sedition. Sedition is not betraying the country. It is betraying the establishment.
It's much like the King of England. Anytime you just raise the finger, you got the noose.
Yeah.
And I think that what's an also interesting point is that when you say it's not betraying the country, it's betraying the establishment. Well, actually, to the establishment, they are the country, because they are so self-absorbed that they believe they are these temporary holders of our power, are actually permanent mainstays that should decide the course of the country forever. So when you betray them, they take it as betraying the country, even though those two are not synonymous. In fact, they're oftentimes mutually exclusive.
Well, that's true. They have decided that they are the country. Oh, my loyalty's to them now? Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, that's just not going to happen. And look, classic, what it is think of it as a cultural insurgency. The classic insurgent story arc is insurgents rise because of grievances among the people, but not all the people. Some people are a little angry, but they're not willing to commit. They're not coming off the bench. The counterinsurgents, the people in authority, overreact and begin oppressing not just the insurgents, but everybody else. Remember, if they just hauled away guys who dress like Thor, most of us would go, but that's not what they're after. They're after everybody. So now they've turned everybody against them. They've massively increased the opposition. Classic insurgency, classic counterinsurgency mistake. Alienate the people by an overwrought, over-oppressive reaction to the insurgents. But they don't see, the thing is, they can't conceive of the idea of having to win over the people, because for the last couple of decades, they really haven't had to. The people went along with things. It took us a while to realize our country was kind of a lie, or had become a lie.
Yeah, in many ways, Trump did something they haven't done in a while, is actually win over voters.
Yeah.
Correct. The partisan split in the nation was driven by what was supposedly an ideological feud between the left and the right. And Trump came in and said, no, it's not between the left and the right. It's between the inside establishment and the outside. And
that's the greatest crime of all, because it's the most accurate.
Exactly. I concur. And I think that transitions well into our second point that I wanted to ask you about, which was where you see the populist movement going over the next 2 years and then the next 4 years. What do you see with Trump? What do you see?
Oh, I see it growing. I see it growing incredibly. Because these people are so, well, frankly, stupid. These people, I mean, to me, it's kind of funny because it seems so obvious to me. These guys simply continue to make the same mistake over and over again, and they refuse to see it. They refuse to understand.
Well, I think that partially arises as a result of when there has been a system in place for so long, you tend to take for granted that people can change their minds, and that all it takes is one person or one part of a movement to stir up the passions and the underlying desires of the people. And that's what Trump was able to do so well. And I think that's what scares them is, again, that there's been this.
Well, he was an avatar of a much deeper dissatisfaction with our garbage elite. Trump is an avatar. Everybody say, "Oh, Trump." But now we got rid of Trump. We're all set. Are you kidding? Trump is an avatar. He's not the. He's not the end. He's the beginning.
In terms of the next 2 and 4 years, how important is Trump to the movement? Because I tend to think he's rather important to 2022 and getting candidates primaried and getting better candidate Republicans in, because he has a unique way of being able to endorse people and just like destroying rhinos. So, and what, in your opinion, like how important is Trump to the movement going forward? And like, what is his role?
Look, I think Trump is going to have a role as a kingmaker. I don't think he's going to run again. I think it would be a mistake to run again. He goes in with 50% of America against him, not rationally. And remember, irrationality is the friend of our enemies. If you go and talk to a leftist, a significant number of our critiques are shared, particularly about giant corporations.
Mm-hmm.
Wokeness is literally the opium of the masses. Wokeness is what blinds them. You remember maybe 20 years ago, Democrats used to say, I can't believe these Republicans are voting against their interests because of, talking about apple pie and the flag, but don't they understand their economic interests? Well, they understood their cultural interests. This wokeness idiocy, which always eats its own, which is why it's different than, say, the people who had traditional values and would vote on those over what is allegedly their economic wisdom. The wokeness stuff is sheer, it's freaking heroin. It blinds you. It makes you ineffective. You
can't talk to someone that's woke.
No, you can't. And that's why, because if you talk to them, you might figure out you got the same view of Silicon Valley. And they wouldn't want that.
Well, to delve further into that, I think that's a very critical point you're making, both of you, David and Kurt. I think that I wanted to ask about why you believe, you wrote a book, for instance, about, the lies about Trump, many of the very obvious lies. And I wanted to ask you, why were they so easily bought by the populace? Obviously, some things he did were unsavory. We can all agree on that. He was generally on the mark with a lot of things. But why is it that there were so many lies that were propagated about Donald Trump that the woke mob, that the left decided was complete truth, that they took as an edict, a heavenly edict of some sort?
Well, remember, you're talking about people who are not necessarily rational, though they will tell you they love science, and then they'll tell you a boy is a girl. This is, look, when people are talking about their own power, only stupid people like, the bow tie Republicans, the cruise ship ahoy gang, will allow a principle to destroy them. And one principle is objective truth. They're not going to let objective truth stop them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was true or not. It was necessary. So that was Trump. Trump is demonstrably the least racist of presidents conceivable, and yet he had to be racist because it was necessary.
I always like to say that, if Donald Trump was a racist, he was like one of the worst racists ever. If Donald
he was an unskilled
worst Nazi ever, because he accomplished so many things for disenfranchised groups in the Middle East on foreign policy that it's very difficult to even now, even with all the hysteria that is created on the left, that to assert that Trump was some sort of massive bigot. And I think that's a very critical point to make because
Yeah,
go ahead, David.
Yeah, given what he did for Israel, he was a terrible Hitler.
Yeah, exactly. It's just objectively stupid, and we all know it is. And look, when somebody's doing something that's objectively false, you have to ask a question. Is this person stupid, or does this person think you are stupid? It's one or the other. If you call the guy who moved the capital of Israel to its actual capital an anti-Semite whose daughter and grandchildren are Orthodox Jews, well, not Orthodox, but I guess conservative. Do you really think he's anti-Semitic in any kind of meaningful way? And the answer is obviously, well, no. Then why would you say that? Well, maybe you're stupid, and you just and you're like, oh no, I think that could happen. Okay, it could be stupid, or you could think that the person you're talking to is too stupid to see the truth. The question is, who is stupid? The person telling the lies, or the person who is being told the lies?
Now,
and that's always the question you got to ask.
Absolutely, and as you said, it's as though the necessary untruth triumphs the dispensable truth, because when you are able to alter what the truth is, then everything becomes dispensable. Truth no longer has any currency or clout within society.
Well, look,
and that's what
that's in a way, this is kind of going on with what we said before with the changing the rules. At one point, you could actually argue the truth. You could actually point out facts and change people's mind, win the argument. If you dispense with reason, how are we supposed to protect our interests? We can't argue for them. To even do that's racist. So you just can't do it. You have no ability to affect things because you can't argue them. To merely argue it is racist or sexist or homophobic or fatphobic or whatever idiocy there is. So they've kind of created a system where it's literally impossible for you to advance your own interests. It's actually kind of brilliant. I think they just kind of stumbled into it. I think at one point they just kind of said, like reporters kind of said, hey, it's kind of a hassle to pretend that I'm objective, so I'm just going to stop and see what happens. And they didn't. And in fact, they got a hit on MSNBC. So it's like suddenly it's like, well, why should I even pretend to be objective when I can do better not being objective, and I get rewarded for it.
Exactly. And if you continue that mindset, right, if you create these personal attacks, you are racist, you're homophobic, and so forth, right, that does two things to whoever it is that you're attacking. For one, that person often has to spend time defending their own character so it is not black and white. You have to say, no, I didn't do that, right? That's not who I am as a person, yada, yada. So they have to spend time, and not everyone will end up believing them. Some people will buy into the lie. And the second part of that, it's twofold, is that person that you're attacking cannot push their own agenda of logical facts that they believe will help them politically. So not only are you forcing somebody to defend themselves, you're also not allowing them to progress their own ideas. And the left has really capitalized on that mindset and that type of behavior.
I think that there are probably a lot of people out there who if they didn't believe Trump was racist or Hitler, they would have probably have realized they would agree with Trump on a lot of policies because he's just common sense. And I think that's part of the reason why they went after him so hard.
That's a huge part.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're absolutely correct. He's unbelievably dangerous to them.
His mere existence, even if he's out of office, his mere existence of challenging the establishment is still a danger to them.
Well, why?
Because he was so right.
I mean, that's why they cancel bank accounts. That's why they are trying to ensure he can never run for office again. His existence in and of itself serves as a sort of indictment of the elite, and what happens is that the elite understand this. They're dumb in many ways, as Kurt and
They're unwise. They're not dumb. They're unwise.
yes. So they understand that there is action that needs to be taken to ensure that not Trump himself is gotten rid of, but the idea behind him is gotten rid of. They view it as terminal to their cause of corruption, which it is.
Yes, he must be stopped because he is a threat to them.
Both Republicans and Democrats.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, there's no question there. There are a lot of establishment Republicans who are very unhappy that us, proles decided that we were going to get uppity.
So speaking to the establishment Republicans, right? They control a lot of the party itself. They control
for now.
Money, they control the donor, right? So with that being said, why no third party? I know you've written articles about it. Why no third party?
Oh, it's a terrible idea because infrastructure. Look, bad commanders think tactics, smart ones think logistics. You need an infrastructure. You need a infrastructure that can do the jobs, that can do the job a party does. Party does a lot of things. Everything from organizing and vetting candidates, collecting money, getting out the vote, providing legal services to keep you out of prison. And remember, our side's the only side that's going to be subject to any kind of campaign finance scrutiny. That's why I love these. We need to have campaign finance laws. It's it's just us. Because they'll do whatever they want, and the Department of Justice won't charge them. When you see Andy McCabe in jail, you may then tell me about how there is a there is some chance that we will be subject to any kind of any kind of
any kind of equality. Because if you even look at Eric's, like in terms of enforcing laws, if you even look at something as minor as it's not minor in terms of its severity, but minor compared to other items that are events that have occurred. Look at Eric Swalwell. I mean, the man was literally caught having some sort of relationship, whether or not it was, intimate, we don't know. They've discussed that. I'm just saying there was a very tight-knit relationship with a known Chinese spy, and he still sits on the intelligence or the security committee or intelligence committee.
Yes.
It's incredible.
It would be, but this is how they show you who's boss. They're sneering at us by showing us we can do whatever we want. The rules don't apply to us. Suck it up.
In terms of third parties, I've heard a couple people say Trump was just using that idea as leverage to scare Republicans. And I do believe that. I've also heard Barris say that Trump would probably could use a third party and actually collapse the Republican Party because the Republican Party isn't nearly as strong without the Trump coalition, and it wouldn't be your traditional split. What do you think about that?
Look, I think there's room for a party of the left and a party of the right in the American system, and the party of the right is always going to be the Republicans. It's about 50-50 naturally. Everybody's trying to get 50 plus 1, right? That's how it works. If you get 55% in an election, that's a landslide.
It's been years since someone got 55.
Exactly. So everybody's fighting right in the middle. You can't win taking 50% and dividing it in two or in thirds or whatever. You cannot win. It's just math. So you've got a structural issue and you've got a mathematics issue. The answer is, of course, to change the party. The left did that. The left changed the Democrat Party. And we need to continue to change the Republican Party. And I hate these people. I hate it when these people refuse to rigorously assess things. Oh, Republicans are terrible. They're always terrible. Well, I know they're terrible, but we have made measurable improvements over the last few years. We are going in the right direction. But we lost here, and this guy's a jerk. Yes, we're going to have 50% of the people in America in the party. And you know what? Of necessity, a bunch of them are going to be more conservative than us. And surprise, when you have 50% of America, some of them are going to be disappointments to you. Whether they're principal disappointments like Susan Collins, I don't get mad at her because she just is who she is. I get mad at Ben Sapp because he's an asshole who gets off on screwing his own people.
I have less problems with Susan Collins because she's from Maine.
I got no problem with her.
Yeah, I have a bigger
Susan
problem
Collins.
I have a bigger problem with Lisa Murkowski, who's representing a deep red state.
Oh, she's garbage.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't like the people who lie about who they are.
Yeah.
You know, the Mitt Romney, I'm severely conservative. You're a bitch. You're the son of a Miracle Whip.
And
gosh, I want my vote back.
To move that point a little bit further down the line, I also think that it's interesting when you talk about the right and the left, right? I think that many of the accusations that are made by the left are actually indirect or direct admissions of wrongdoing, right? For instance, the left right now claims that they have in fact moved. This is, I almost laugh saying it, that they've moved too far right, and that the Republicans have gone too radically right. When in reality, what's occurred is over the past 20 years or so before Trump was that the party continually made concessions to the Democrats, and what happened is they didn't really stand for anything. That's why you had candidates like Mitt Romney, like John McCain, that were graceful, as many have said, graceful losers. And that's why the party lost for a very long time. And then you have Trump come along who actually moves further right.
Well, that's the other thing. For too long, the conservatives were not conserving anything except their own crappy sinecures. And if you look at garbage scows like the cruise ship brochure that was the Weekly Standard, you can see that. These guys were hacks and losers. And it was all a grift and a scam. Everything. It was amazing. Every year you got, vote for us so that you see that we're going to fight this conservative battle. Send us money. Oh, did you hear about this horrible thing on campus where these conservatives were shut down? Give us money to fight this. And of course, now they are fully embracing cancel culture. They are fully stabbing us in the back. No one wants them. I think the National Review is probably going to go under unless another Silicon Valley zillionaire decides to start funding it. It's, these guys have no power and they're angry because they've been rejected. But the thing is, they always thought we were idiots.
You know, if the Republicans were really interested in power and winning elections, they would have been smart and embraced Trump.
Well, as a party,
yeah,
they're dumb. As individuals, they, perfectly fine for them.
The problem is their objectives are different than what they should be.
Well, yes, because they haven't been, but now we are beginning to hold them accountable,
right? Which
is nice. I think that, remember, so much of this is about defeating accountability, right? They do not want to be held accountable by us. And that's part of the double standard, that they can't be, and that they're fighting it at every turn.
Yeah, and I think another troubling aspect to the Republican Party is just that I think a lot of voters have been making concessions, and now there's a clash between, it's roughly 25% of the party, I would say, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, that are still establishment Republicans. And it's like, how do you get those people to come towards a more Trumpian type party?
Oh, well, I think the Democrats are going to do that. I think that desiccated old zombie President Asterisk is doing a great job of defining things. I've been enjoying with a bunch of other people. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I can't believe these, in a stroke of the pennies, destroyed 100,000 jobs. And I'll tweet back, hey, but look on the bright side, no more mean tweets. Time to prioritize, guys. Are you going to prioritize your fussy sissiness? Because he said mean things, or actual jobs for people. When there's a massive attack on the United States by China or some other country, and thousands of our guys die because the military has become incompetent, focusing on idiocy like transgender awareness and all that, instead of combat effectiveness. And the military leadership's just a wreck. People are going to go, oh my gosh, I put my kid into the Navy and I was told, we had the best military in the world, and now he's at the bottom of the South China Sea with the rest of the aircraft carrier crew. And, what happened? Reality's going to bite. And at some point, people are going to go, I'll take the mean tweets. But here's the thing. I don't think Trump was our last chance. I think he was their last chance.
In the Republicans?
No, I think in the entire establishment.
Oh, okay.
I think who comes next is not going to make the same mistakes Trump did. Trump made terrible personnel mistakes. He was not ready with his own set of executive orders going in. He didn't have a woke crew of people. He didn't have a Rolodex. Like, Jeb Bush, for all his failings, would have had 5,000 people on his contact list that he could call to go staff out the government. Trump didn't have that. Trump had to rely on the enemy.
Yeah, he came out of nowhere, though. I mean, he wasn't exactly
correct, but
he didn't have a machine.
I would say that his biggest downfall, as Kurt is mentioning, was that he didn't have the ability to completely wipe out the swamp that many people refer to. I think that he came in thinking that it wasn't as bad as it actually was. I think he underestimated the depths of corruption that were going on, that was occurring in the government. And so the end result of that was that he had these sort of overlapping, half put together changes in personnel that at times worked and then many times did not. And I think that, as Kurt was mentioning, the next candidate that comes along will understand this. It is very, very clear to the next populist candidate that the biggest reason Trump failed in part of his presidency, I think he was overall a success, but I'm saying that in the biggest part of his failure was that lack of personnel.
I would say on policy, he was successful. On things like the swamp and things that needed to be done, like the reform of the system, it was a miss.
Look, the next guy is going to know, and the next guy is going to be ready. And the next guy's not going to have, a bunch of swamp creatures there. Look, I hope that, the next president asks people like me who've worked in the government and who know things from observing it to come in and help him prep. Because the first thing is I would fire every U.S. attorney in the United States, every single one. I'd fire everybody I could fire. I'd say, I want your resignations. I'll tell you who's I'm not accepting. Everyone. Chairman of Joint Chief, you're fired. FBI director, you're fired. I would fire everybody and put in loyalists. Oh, the enemy would be really angry. So what?
You're subverting democracy, they'd say. Or, the point is, guess what? They do the same thing. It's not like
they did. I'm not going to engage them on a hypocrisy anymore, except to the extent it convinces unwoke people to become woke. And your audience is going to be woke. So we just assume they're going to do whatever they want to do and then complain when we do it. Instead of arguing it or pointing it out, I'm simply going to savor it as I destroy all their dreams and make them die. So I would just do it, and I would ignore the criticism. They come out, they're saying it's an attack on democracy. Yeah, they would say that. By the way, here's another list of people that the president's fired today. We've asked for resignations from every single political appointee. Every one of them. Every one of them. They're gone. And I've got strict orders for the deputies. And the deputies that violate my orders, they're going to be fired too.
Right.
and then I do it. And I think there are a lot of things, there are a lot of new ways to approach governing in this age. For one thing, I would, if I was the president, I would have the Office of Social Media Monitoring to monitor social media stories where an act of the president can make a difference. Is there somebody being prosecuted wrongly that conservatives are abuzz about? I want to know, say I'm the president. I want to know so I can get in there and say, tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, I have, Joe Smith is being prosecuted for alleged crimes. I have a lot of questions. I've directed that the Attorney General and the Director of the FBI be in my office at 9 a.m. tomorrow to brief me on the situation, and I will make my decision then. Oh boy, military. So I hear there is a chaplain in Alaska who's being told he's not allowed to, that he's about to be, kicked out of the Army because he doesn't believe that transgender soldiers are compliant with his religion. I am very concerned about that. I've directed the Secretary of Defense, Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, and every single officer in his chain of command to be in my office at 9 a.m. tomorrow to brief me on how they are going to ensure that this soldier's First Amendment rights are fully protected. And then if the briefing was inadequate, I would walk out and say, I am not satisfied with the reaction of the chain of command. They are not adequately protecting the rights of my soldiers. I have therefore relieved every officer from Colonel 06 up to 4-star general. Here is my message. You will protect the rights of my soldiers. Their deputies I have directed to take charge and to brief me in 2 days on how they are going to protect the rights of my soldiers. That's how you get results. That's how I got results as a commander.
And you said the next president, the next nominee, who is a good next nominee, or who?
Oh, you had to ask me that, didn't you? I'll tell you who it isn't. It isn't Nikki Haley.
No, it's not.
She's a weather vane, and she's weak and stupid. Look, it's well known. I'm personal friends with Rick Grenell. I worked with him for the president in Las Vegas. I have a huge amount of respect for him. I want to see him in the mix. I want to see Kristi Noem. I want to see Rick DeSantis, who just yesterday put out I think it was a good start on regulating the social media.
Yeah,
I don't think it goes far enough. But
right, I agree.
On it. I like Greg Abbott in some ways, although there's some of his people have some questions about how he's handled the virus. Look, I think we have a lot of folks who are good. I think we have a lot of folks who need to step back because I'm not sure that they can win.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of great populist people. I'm concerned about like Ron DeSantis. Can he win in the North? I mean, in the Midwest? Like,
can he? That is a great question. And look, I don't. I am not loyal to any politician.
Right.
I demand they be loyal to me. Okay. So maybe I like Donald Trump. No secret. I wrote a book defending him.
Mm-hmm.
If Donald Trump becomes a liability as opposed to an asset, he needs to step aside. Sorry,
Absolutely.
Nothing personal. It's just business.
Sure. Yeah. He's hurting your life. I mean, go away, right?
Yeah. And I think whoever Trump puts his support behind, to be honest, will win.
Well, the nomination for sure.
Trump. Yeah, if it's not Trump himself. I just think that what Trump needs to do is to be, if he doesn't run, is to be active in smart ways, right? Limited time. Do not get in front of the camera nonstop. Don't make it about yourself. That's the most important part of his, if he does help in a campaign for somebody else.
Yeah. No, it can't be about them. I am unconcerned about the career, dreams, or aspirations of any politician. Absolutely unconcerned. The only question is, how can you succeed in making America more prosperous and free? And if you can't, well,
I think that sort of leads me into, we've talked a lot about the future of the Republican Party. Let's just talk about the future in general in the United States. with everything going on. It's unrelated, but I think it's an important topic, is COVID. Kurt, what do you think about COVID? When does the madness end? I know it's unrelated to what we were just discussing.
I was never afraid of it even before I got it. I think there are a lot of people who are, I think there are a lot of people who are COVID junkies. This is excitement for them. This is almost like they get to live in this nice, safe dystopia where there's kind of this ambiguous risk out there, and it makes their life exciting. Now, of course, it's not much of a risk except for certain people. And a lot of people have died from it. I mean, there's no question. But most of the people are going to get it and be okay. And yet a lot of people are willing to destroy society. And I think some people are taking advantage of it to attempt to reshape society, particularly through the destruction of small business. And look, I think it's going to go away, but I think, sadly, the establishment has seen, hey, this is a great tool that we can use.
Like everything else, the establishment has used something that should be non-political or should not be as big of a deal, has made it into mass hysteria, and has used it for their own benefit, as does most things, as they do with most things.
As I've been saying for a while, the biggest mistake we've made as a citizenry was allowing them to lock us down.
I think that was a huge mistake. But again, Americans are used to assuming things are fair and right. I think this is, I think that they're, people, there's kind of an inertia. You just assume good faith. I think people are waking up and seeing that's just not so.
Absolutely. It illuminates that what we believe to be right, what we believe is fair, in reality, most of the time is not.
Yep.
Now, let's focus on one more thing, probably a weird phrase to use, the Biden administration. But what
the asterisk administration?
Yeah, the asterisk administration. So what do you think the most harmful thing he's done so far is? Because there's actually, I've been keeping track, a ton of harmful policy that's been put in place already just over the course of about a week and a half.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, there's so many to choose from. Throwing tens of thousands of Americans into poverty as a sacrifice to the blue state weather goddess has to be pretty appalling. Enshrining racism as the central core operating ethos of our entire bureaucracy, that's pretty bad. It's bad. And the fact is, there's going to be a reaction. The economy is going to crash. America's going to be sad. It has to, because these people suck. And I hope that we're able to exploit it and use it to retake power and then to ruthlessly destroy them.
Yeah, and there's so many. You know what's crazy is, as we were mentioning, as you were saying, is that the radical nature of these policies is being phrased in ways that to American citizens might not sound that bad. But if you actually think about the implications, they're incredibly scary and harmful. They talk about racism as a central issue, and to everybody, well, yeah, racism's bad. But if you make the entire cause of the government to solve racism, what you're actually saying is that America at its core is a bad country. It's a racist country.
The country that they run is a racist country. I think that's kind of an interesting giveaway. The elites talking about how terrible America is, but of course they don't mean that. They mean us.
Yes, it's not them. It is always that they are holier than thou. They are infallible. They are everything that a normal citizen should aspire to be, even though it is almost the exception when a politician is better than an average citizen.
Well, it's not even a politician. It's a class thing. You have this class of unaccomplished losers who's inherited their power, not because they achieved anything, but because they went to a bunch of similar schools, essentially. That's really it. You look at these people, right? The people who consider themselves our elite. And what's the common factor. Well, it isn't that they're like big achievers who are smart and talented. It's that they all went to quote unquote good colleges. And none of them did not go to a good college. None.
Well, the problem with that is that often they associate a degree with some sort of moral superiority, and that's not how it
Well,
works.
that's it. It's the credential that lets you into the club. You just to remain there. Your dues are to accept all their bullshit beliefs and thought patterns and assumptions. So that's how you stay in.
Absolutely. Wrapping up here, Kurt, I have a couple more questions, just two more. One of which is, if you were to have to give a final prediction, 2024, a Republican and Democrat card, who are the names on those cards? If you were to guess.
Democrat, Kamala Harris running for re-election, probably with Pete Buttigieg. And Republican, I'd love to see DeSantis and Grinnell.
That sounds like a pretty good card. I've said, if Tulsi Gabbard ran on a Republican card, they would win so many votes. I know it wouldn't happen. I've said this to David, but that populist movement card would just be, it would garner so many votes.
Look, I think the populist wave is inevitable. I don't think there's anything they can do about it. I think they're going to, every time they try and respond to it, they will make a mistake. It's because they're unwise and incompetent and corrupt. And they think their enemy is stupid. And it's not.
Absolutely. So final question here to wrap up. Where can fans find more of your work and where can they follow you?
Oh, well, go to my locals community where I've just established. It's Dave Rubin's thing. That's at Kurt Schlichter. And you can get on there and I post a little morning report and some other stuff. You can go on Twitter at Kurt Schlichter. Read me on Town Hall every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And get my books. I write action-packed novels about America breaking into red and blue, and they're funny and full of shooting, and they're very popular. People love these damn things. Starts with People's Republic, and there's 5 of them. I'm writing the 6th. They're a lot of fun, so check them out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we wish you nothing but the best, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you so
All
much.
right, thanks a lot.